Thank you very much for joining us today, and welcome to our webinar. I think we will wait for 1 or 2 minutes more, or 1 minute at least, so everyone has the chance to join us. Maybe just a brief introduction while the other ones are still joining. So today we will talk a bit about version 4.0 of our software, nPro. Many of you know me already. My name is Marco Wirtz. I'm founder of nPro Energy, and I will guide you today through the webinar and show you the latest features that we developed for you as a user. And it will take around about 60 minutes to show you a bit the new functionalities, and then we can also answer your questions. And there are still people joining, so I will wait for a few moments more so that I don't miss the beginning.
Hello.
And in the first part of the webinar, I would like to ask you to mute your microphone. Later on, we can also, if you have questions, then you can also contribute, of course. But I will show you the details later on. So maybe I will just share my screen and share my slides also. And then we can start. So let me share my slides. All right, so again, thank you very much for joining today. We will have a few notes at the beginning, organizational notes. I said this before. So if you have questions and feedback during the workshop, please feel free to write it in the chat. And later on, you can also ask them directly live if you want to. We will give you the link to the demo version of 4.0 during the workshop in the second half of the webinar. The workshop will be recorded and we will publish it on YouTube just for your information. And the slides, if you want to have the slides later on, you can have them by email. Just send us an email after the workshop. And it will, as I said before, around 60 minutes for the webinar. So what do we have on our agenda today? I will give a short overview about the latest development, and then I will give you a longer live demo and show you the features directly in the software, what we developed in the last month for version 4.0. And at the end, I will give you a brief outlook also, and of course, also give you the link how you can test it on your own if you want to. All right, so a brief overview. Maybe you know this, some of you may not know where we are coming from. So originally we were a startup and spin-off of Aachen University. I did my PhD there in Aachen about fifth generation district heating and cooling networks. And the goal to develop this easy to use software for planning district energy systems. And we already released a couple of versions. So last year we had a major update for this GIS functionality that you can actually visualize the networks on a map. And that's, I think very handy and also very useful for using the software. And actually by chance, we have always the updates in October, more or less. This year we have the major update to version 4.0. And here we have not a single new functionality, but actually a whole bunch of new features that we introduced. And I will go and will walk you through later in this webinar what we have implemented. And as the software evolves, our customer base is also, our user base also evolving. So thank you very much at this point for all the users that are using nPro. Of course, many are coming from Germany, but we have also a quite decent user base in Europe and also beyond. So thank you very much for this. Many engineering offices, many consulting companies are using it, and of course also utility companies. Here a few of them in the slide. And if you want to know more about the development history of nPro and which features came with the different versions, you find this also on our website. If you go to www.npro.energy and then you click on the version history, then you can see which features came in with which version. And actually, there's also now online the data for version 4.0, but just keep posted and stay in the call, so I will walk you through. What is the focus of the new version? What are the new features? So here an overview, there are a few fields in the software that we focused on. So especially the building part and the district heating part, of course. We have many new parameters for the network as well as for the buildings. And also the economics are now, there are much enhancement in this field. Actually, there are not so many new features in the Energy Hub part and the interfaces, but we are planning more updates in 2026, and I will give you a brief outlook at the end of the webinar, what are the features that are coming next year also. All right, so I think now everyone joined, and I will directly start with our live demo. And of course, I hope that you are excited as this folks here when I show you the new features. I will just leave this presentation here, and I will go directly into the software. It's the development version that I will show to you right now. It's not 100% tested, but let's say 90%. So it's much easier to show, or much nicer to show you the live demo than showing you some slides. But I need to orient myself here with the right slides to not forget anything that I want to show you. So there are a few new features here directly on the map, and actually one new feature is already online with the latest update, but I still want to show you this because it's important. We implemented a filter functionality here. So if you want to filter buildings by their parameters, you can do this now. For example, if you say you want to have the residential buildings or you want to have all the large commercial buildings, then you can use this filter functionality to select buildings. And we have really implemented many parameters that you can search for. And there's also something like connection ratio. And I just want to mention this because it's very handy. Here you can set, for example, 50% of the buildings in the map. And then if you click on filter buildings, it will just filter out half of the buildings, in this case 50%, and then select this in the map. And then, for example, you can connect it or delete the connection to the network, or you can change the parameters of the buildings, for example. There's also a new function to invert the selection. So if you click here on the left-hand side on invert, then you always get the opposite selection that you originally had. And this is also possible for pipes. So you can also filter the pipes by diameter, for example. If you want to select all the small pipes, then you can do this very easily with this new functionality. There's one additional function that will be new in version 4.0, and that's the first one that I present here today for version 4. So if I click on one of the buildings, you can copy the attributes and the parameters of this building to other buildings. So you find, if you click on one building, then you find the small copy icon here. And if you click on this, then this building will be highlighted in blue. And then you can select other buildings, like 3 or 4 or 5 other buildings, and then say that these buildings should have the identical parameters as the blue one, except for the address, for example, and except for the building name. And here on the right-hand side, you find then these attributes that you can select, and you can say that you want to copy everything, but you can also say that you maybe want to copy only the energy system configuration from this building into the other buildings. And then it's very easy to maybe parameterize one building and then copy the parameters to all other buildings. And you don't need necessarily go to this functionality that you can only change one parameter at a time. All right, this will be new, and I think that's very handy. Then we come to the first larger enhancement, which also affects the calculation quite a lot. If I open one of the building here, click on Edit Buildings, then you find some new parameters here on domestic hot water. So for example, in the old version, it was more like assumption. There were also some assumption in the calculation made. Now you can really set the parameters in detail. You can, for example, distinguish between central heating for domestic water or decentral heating. So in case that you have apartment substations, in Germany, for example, we have this a lot in new built areas, for example, then you can now also select apartment substations as an option. And you can also decide if you want to have a buffer storage for domestic hot water or not. And if I click here on detailed settings, you will find more information, and you find all the parameters that you can define for this. So if you select, for example, the central heating, so for example, freshwater station or domestic hot water storage, then you can also define the tap temperature here. You can decide if you want to have a buffer storage or not. And if you have a buffer storage, you have some more parameters to design the buffer storage accordingly. In the results section here on the right-hand side, you will also find some early design results. So the storage volume, for example, as well as the network connection is printed here. So if you want to go into the details more regarding domestic hot water, this will be possible in version 4.0. And I will come to this later when I explain a bit the diversity factors, because this will also influence this. We now use a approach in the calculation, roughly spoken, that we multiply the number of apartments that you can set with the power for domestic hot water, and then apply the diversity factor for domestic hot water, and this results then in the total load of the building. And when speaking about power of domestic hot water, we can, of course, change this as well. So there's one new parameter where you can define the liters per minute that you take from the faucet, from the drawer. You can use standard values, but you can also put your own value if you have special requirements in the building. So this will then directly affect also, for example, the network sizing. This parameter is actually the same as before, just in a different manner here shown. So you can still also change the annual demand if you want to. Regarding storages, we have storages now here for domestic hot water, but you can also select a storage if you want to for space heating. That's in the left column here. So if you go all the way down to buffer storage, you can play with this parameter as well. So if you say we would like to have a very optimized district heating network, maybe with very small diameters, you can install a storage also for space heating. This will have a smaller effect, but a little bit at least. And then there are two options. You can either get an estimation from the software or proposal which storage volume is good. Or if you want to experiment and you want to install your own idea, then you can also define the storage volume. And this will then lead to a smaller load profile, so to say, because you cut the peaks of the space heating demand. And this, at the end, will also result to a lower load in the network. And then here on the bottom, we have a completely new area. The energy system was there before, but it looked very different. And it was a little bit limited. But now we changed this configuration here quite a lot. So you see here, we have the space heating technologies as well as the domestic hot water technologies. And you can now choose from different technologies. So in general, if you have a normal district heating network, you would just take the heat network as the generation technology. But maybe in a fifth generation district heating and cooling network, for example, you have the booster heat pump as an option. That was available before as well, but it was not so flexible to define. And you also have the possibility to say that you might want to have an air source heat pump in the building or a ground source heat pump, or maybe something like a gas boiler or oil boiler. And this gives you much more flexibility. For example, if you want to have two scenarios in your project, one with a heat network and one with decentral boilers, you could then say, for example, that you have a gas boiler for covering the space heating demand. And here on the right-hand side for domestic hot water, the same. Here you can have the same options as for space heating. So if you say that you would like to have a building without network connection and only a gas boiler as a scenario, for example, then you can do this and then select gas boiler. There's an additional functionality that we integrated. You find this here in the center column. There's peak load with second generator, so with a second generation technology. So for example, if you say that you have a heat network that supplies the space heating demand, but maybe you have an existing gas boiler, for example, in the building, and this should cover the peak demand, then you can check this box here, peak load, and then you have the possibility to say that the base load comes from the heat network and the peak load comes from the gas boiler. So this whole configuration here under energy system gives you much more flexibility to, for example, also model decentral systems or to model this peak load configuration with different technologies. So yeah, this is one very important enhancement for the new version. Let me close the building settings and let me go to the, did I explain everything? Yes. Let me go to the heat network settings because there we also changed a few things actually as a result of the changed building calculation. So you find some parameters that you already know, like heat carrier fluids, like the network temperature can be defined, of course. And here under heat losses, there's one additional option now available. So of course you can consider the losses and the heat gains in the calculation. If you want to have the losses and the gains maybe not in your calculation, for example, for a fifth generation district heating and cooling network, you had this option before that you can say, okay, let's neglect the losses and the gains. But especially for the ones who already used nPro for fifth generation heat networks, there was sometimes the case that you have a lot of heat gains during summer. And now you have also the option to say, okay, I only want to neglect the heat gains and get like a conservative design, but that is maybe a little bit more easier to communicate or just a little bit more conservative as you need it. So that's the detail here under heat losses. And one major change is under the diversity factors. So in the old version, in the version 3.6, for example, we only had a one diversity factor for domestic hot water and for space heating together. And now, since we have this domestic hot water power explicitly in the building, we can now set two diversity factors, two models for it separately. And for domestic hot water, for example, we have a few options that you can choose from. TU Dresden, Technical University Dresden is one famous model that we use in Germany a lot. There are a few other German standards, but there's also something like the Danish standard 439, which is also, I think, recommended by the SIPSI, as well as the Danfoss-Redan profile that we integrated. And if you have your own profile for some reason, you can also upload your own profile if you want to. And this is then used for the domestic hot water part of the calculation in the building, but also in the network. And this space heating diversity factor is then used for all the loads with respect to the space heating. We put the first option that says neglect diversity factor. So if you have a little bit more conservative design, if you want to have more conservative design, you can use this one. If you want to have still a little bit of diversity for space heating, if you say, okay, not every building is really consuming or has the space heating demand at the same time, then you can put a little diversity factor here. And if you want to have your own profile, you can still also upload your own profile. And maybe we can visualize how it looks. So if I use these two methods here, winter as well as TU Dresden, then we can scroll down here a little bit, and then you find the two profiles here on the bottom, number of apartments and the diversity factor from one starting going down to a defined value that you can change if you want to. And here for domestic hot water, we have this much steeper curve that goes down then with the number of apartments or number of apartments. All right, and these two approaches are actually then implemented in the network sizing as well. So the load is separate there as well for domestic hot water and for space heating, and then added up together to find the actual load for the individual network section. All right, so let's go back to the main screen. I think I explained here everything, yes. And now I want to give you a few more insights about the pipe parameters because we changed this as well quite a lot. If I first go here down to the pipe parameters section, and you notice it's similar as before, you can choose the pipe types that you want, steel pipe, plastic pipe, uninsulated or insulated. There's one new feature, and you find it here on the top right. It says pipe models. So we had many requests that people would like to model mixed networks. So with steel and plastic, for example, or with twin pipe and a single pipe. So that's very common to use. And that was not possible in the old version, but here now you can define different pipe models, 3, 4, 5, 6 pipe models, as many as you want. And then I have an example here with the ISO Plus, for example, as a single pipe, and then the Rehau as a plastic pipe, plastic single pipe. And then you can say that some of the network sections should have the first pipe model, and others should have maybe the second pipe model. And let me show how that works in the software directly. So if I click on one of the network sections here, and then edit network section, you find a kind of new screen, so at least with many new parameters. This first setting here, the set diameter manually, that was already in the old version. So if you would like to set the diameter on your own, then it's still possible, of course. But here on the pipe model, there you find this option where you can say, okay, I would like to have some sections of the network as steel pipe or plastic pipe or whatever you would like to have, or a different insulation standard, for example. And this can be done via this drop-down menu here. There are a few more parameters. So there's a safety factor that you can set. So if you say, I would like to have a bit more safety in the design, then you can put, for example, 1.2 to have 20% more load in the design process. And you can also put an absolute value. So if you know that there will be some more buildings installed in the future, you can directly enter a value and say that this pipe should be designed with an additional amount of kilowatt. There on the right-hand side, you have some more parameters. So for example, the laying method. In the old version, it was only possible to use network that is installed in the ground. But now if you have some sections of the network that may be at the ambient air, you can also choose this here as a heatless model. And if you have some pipes going through the basement, you can use unheated basement or heated basement. And if you have, for some reason, you would like to have some pipe sections that do not have any heat losses, then you can also choose this here as an option. Network costs also important. So if you have an existing network and maybe only a few parts of the network are new, then you can say here with the network section is existing option that they should not be taken into account for the economic analysis. And if you have some special requirements in some parts of the network, so if you say that some network sections go over a bridge or something, then you can also choose an individual cost per meter network for these individual network sections. And the last option here is not super important, but I just want to mention it. So at the end, you get this analysis. For example, how many what's the network distance, so to say, for the building connections, and how many meters are for the transfer connections, for the main connections of the pipe. Then you can also choose this individually for every network section and decide should it be a building connection or not if you are not satisfied with the automatic detection in the software directly. All right, that was a brief overview about the new functionalities here for the network sections. Maybe I will just click on calculate district. I hope I didn't mess it up here with the parameters. Then it will just calculate the district again, and then give us some insights about the diameters. The diameters changed a little bit if you compare directly with the old version. So in some cases, the diameter tends to be one step larger than in the old version, just due to this domestic hot water issue. But normally it's very close also to the old version results. So if you compare directly, you may find some differences, but it's not very much normally. All right, and then I would like to show you one functionality because many people asked for it, that you want to have multiple energy hubs, so multiple feed-in points. And in the old version, that was very complicated to define. There was a way, but it's not very handy. And in the new version, we enhance this. So in this configuration, we have this red building as the energy hub. But if you want to have a second energy hub, let's say, for example, here, this building, then you can now click here on the right-hand side on set as secondary energy hub. And then this will be also a feed-in point, so much easier than in the old version. And you can then define how does this secondary energy hub contribute to the load of the existing network. And then we can click here on edit building. And then click here on the top. There's a small button, energy hub generation. And if I click on this one, then there are different options how you can define what is the power that is fed into the network at this point. There's a very easy option here, the share. So you can say that, for example, 50% should come from the secondary energy hub and 50% are coming from the main energy hub. But of course, there's also a possibility to assign profiles to this secondary energy hub. So for example, if you already did the energy hub calculation with a gas boiler and a heat pump, for example, then you can assign these technologies directly to one of the energy hubs and say, for example, that the profile from the gas boiler should go into this specific building that represents a secondary energy hub. And I will just show how that works. So if I go back here and I click on calculate district, it will now recalculate the load profiles and also recalculate the network sizing. And then probably will very well see that, in this case, you see the left energy hub, the main energy hub, supplies around 50% of the district here on the left-hand side, and 50% is then covered by this secondary energy hub here on the right-hand side. And you can have not only one secondary energy hub, but also 2, 3, 4, 5 buildings, as many as you want. And this will then change the network sizing and also the flow results. All right, then I have a few more things that I would like to show. There's a smaller enhancement. We introduced some shortcuts. So if you are one of the power users of nPro, you can use these shortcuts to work quicker in the tool. So for example, if you want to select multiple buildings, this was possible with the right click, but now you can also always use the control button. So if you press the control button on your keyboard, then you can also select multiple buildings or multiple pipes. There's a shortcut for all buildings to select. So if I put Control A, then we will select all buildings. And if I press Control Shift A, then we will have all the pipes marked or selected. And there's also a possibility for this invert functionality here. So Control I will give you the other part of the buildings. And if you want to edit the building, you can also click on one of the building and then press E. Then it will open up this edit mode for the building directly, and you don't need to click here on the right-hand side all the time on edit building, for example. You can also press delete if you want to delete buildings on your keyboard, and you can press escape if you want to remove the current selection here. So just this information just for the power use of you. We will also write these shortcuts into the documentation so that you can look them up if you want to. Then we are more or less at the second half of the new feature part, and this is more or less about the economics. And we changed there quite a lot. So if I open the costs for the buildings, I will go to the Show Building Details button, and then I will open this this pen icon here. This was already there in the old version, this table here, but we changed it a bit. So the investment costs, you see it already here. You can click on them, and there you can actually put your own cost table and cost sheet if you want to. Because in the old version, it was only possible to define euro or dollar per kilowatt. And if you have very large units and very small units, it's not so easy to find a good value for this. But now you can really have a nonlinear cost curve for it. And we will then interpolate the costs from this table. And here on the right-hand side, you have a subsidy field. So you can define for all technologies in the software now subsidies, and they will also then be summed up and presented to you at the end of the software, at the end of the result page. We will see this later. So this can be also used if you want to. And it's subsidy on the investment of the technology. All right. Then let me go to the next part. That's actually the Energy Hub part. So there, as I said before, there were not so many changes in the physics at least, but a few changes in the economics. So if I go down, we find this technology costs. You know this window already from the old version. We added a few columns here. So for example, the subsidy column. If you want to define subsidies based on the different technologies. So for example, if you're in your country, you get a subsidy on the investment for the air source heat pump, then you can enter value here. And if you do not get a subsidy on the gas boiler, you can then at the same time say that you enter 0 here, and then this will be completely go into the cost without subsidy. And there's another two columns, the existing option here. So if you say that you have maybe a gas boiler that is already there and that it can still be operated for 10 more years, then you can use this option here to model this, which gives you some more flexibility in case that you have already some existing infrastructure in the Energy Hub. And then we have a completely new button here. It says economic parameters in the center here. If I click on this, you find a few parameters that you already know. For example, here on the left-hand side, this is as before in the old version. But here we have in the middle, in the center column, we have a few more new parameters. So for example, the inflation rate can be defined. And you can also define the CO2 price. That was kind of possible before as well, but now it's possible to actually model a price path for it. And I think that's very interesting. So, for example, in Germany, we have right now 55 euros per CO2 or per ton CO2. And then you can assume like that you have an increase over the time per year. And this, of course, will also affect the sizing of your technologies. So if you want to have a linear increase, or maybe you want to have an exponential increase, then you can model this. And then the gas boiler, for example, will be reduced in size, and maybe the air source heat pump will take over a larger amount of the heat generation. And if you have a very specific price profile that you would like to use, you can also upload it and then see how the sizing changes if you have some assumption over the years how a CO2 price will develop over time. I think that's very important for the users within Europe, because in Europe we have this mechanism that the CO2 will have a price in the coming years and that it will increase over time. Here on the right-hand side, we also added a new functionality that is actually only very relevant for the German users. Until this version, we actually never implemented something that is only specific or only useful for only a part of the users. So normally we only implement physics that you can use in all countries. But here we put this specific subsidy program for Germany. We would also like to add other subsidy programs. So if in your country is something available that is very important and that you miss in the software, please write us an email. Maybe we can add these also for your country in the future. This is like the first step where we implemented something for the German market. All right. That is this. Yeah, and I want to show you the annual price change here. If I click on this little button, you find it at several positions in the software. You can actually define a price path for the energy carriers for all of them. So, for example, if you have natural gas, because you have a gas boiler there in your system, you can say that the price should increase over time. This can be a relative change, so percentage per year, or you can have an absolute change, so cents per kilowatt hour per year. And you can also upload your own price profile for biomass, for gas, for electricity, and so on. And this will then influence and affect the sizing as well as the simulation of the system. All right. With this being said, let me see if I forgot anything. No. We can then go to the last page, and I click here on simulation. And then we will see the economic result page, and there we have also a few more features that we added to the software. Otherwise I can just use a shortcut and go to the last. Maybe I actually go to the second tab here because I prepared it already with a second scenario. So on the result page, we have, more tables and some more information for you to analyze the economic KPIs of your project. So the first table is here the economic KPIs. So the net present value that was already available before, amortization period, and so on. Maybe the levelized cost of feed are the most important one. And then you find some more KPIs here in the subsidy table. So if that's relevant for you, and I think for many countries that's very relevant, that you can see how many subsidies do I get when I realize a project. Then you can see this here in this table. So based on the inputs that you did before, as we saw it, we will calculate a subsidy rate for the initial investment, for example, and also for the total project. And then you can see, okay, how many subsidies do I get for this project? And we also inserted this, this column here on the right-hand side, where we show how we actually calculate these values, because sometimes there were some confusion about how we calculate it, or that we cannot understand as a user how the values are calculated. So now we make it a bit more clear and show you the calculation. And if I go down, we find one more table, and that's actually completely new. So a complete cost breakdown of all the cost shares of the project. In the version before, in the current version, this was more like a collection of different tables, but now you can really see what are the costs of the project, and you can zoom in, so to say, and see what are the shares of the different cost shares here. Investment, for example, if I click here on Energy Hub, then you find the photovoltaic and the electric heater and the air source heat pump in this case. And you also find a little bit of the calculation, so you can better understand, okay, how do we get this number? How do we calculate this number here in the column in the center? And then, for example, for energy costs, you find the energy hubs, electricity costs, and so on. And then you can also see, okay, what part is the energy charge and what part is the CO2 pricing, for example. The same for subsidy. There you can also zoom in and see, okay, which subsidies do I get? And then we are summing up all these numbers here to this second column, and then you see the total sum here at the top. You can also, yeah, you can see it here already that you can see all the years, but it's, yeah, there's an abbreviation right now. So if you click on show all years, then you can actually see all the years in detail and see in which year you get which value. And you can also copy this table here. So there's a copy button on the top next to the heading. And if you do this, I will just show you how it looks if you click on copy, for example. Then we copy to the clipboard, and I did this just before the webinar. You can just paste it into Excel, and then you get this complete table here directly in Excel. And of course, it's maybe very useful if you want to, yeah, do some own calculation maybe or some own analysis, and then you can change the numbers and get your own values again. All right. Then there's one more thing I would like to show you because we also improved a little bit the cost shares that you cannot directly model in the software. So we have a button here that is called Other Costs. And here you can define different cost shares that you cannot simulate in the software directly. For example, if you have some costs regarding the building of the energy hub, or maybe regarding the pumps, or maybe regarding the water treatment and so on, then you can enter them here, as many as you want. And you can also have annual costs. So for example, for administration that occur annually, then you can define them in this table, and you can here also have as many as you want. And if I go back to the large table, let's have a look. They are also in this large table here. So other costs in the cost breakdown, there we find this energy hub building here, 100,000 euro. It's an input value from the user. That's why it says input value. And then it appears here in the cost breakdown as well. All right, these are the main functionalities that we added in version 4.0. I will show you one or two small things. If I go back to the project page, you find here on the top right an icon, very small, which indicates how you sort these projects. And we added this functionality that you can sort the projects by the modification date, but you can also now sort them by the alphabet. So if you want to have a different way of sorting your projects, you can do this here. And there are also a few things that we directly change in the software. For example, we try to make it as transparent as possible how the calculation works. So we enhanced a little bit the documentation. And many of the parameters now have really tooltips where you can go and hover with your mouse and then see what is the effect of the parameter on the calculation. So we improved this quite a lot. So to give you better understanding how the software works, how is the calculation done directly in the software and without going to our documentation page. All right, and I think yeah, in our first testing, we saw that the software version 4 should be a bit quicker or a bit faster than the old version, especially if you have larger districts. So we hope that is confirmed once we have the server under higher load. But I think the calculation should be a bit quicker now. All right, then I go back to our slides, and I will show you the rest of the presentation. So if you would like to use, or if you would like to test it on your own, we have the demo version now online since beginning of October. The goal is to obtain some early feedback from you. So if you have some time, just click through it, and maybe there are one or two things that you would like to give us as a feedback, then feel free to do this. The program function are not completely fully tested yet in the demo version. And there are a few functions that are not working. For example, some Excel exports and report exports, they are not available. And right now you cannot save your projects, but still we would be very happy if you would test it and give us feedback. We had the same webinar beginning of October with the German community, and they already gave us some very valuable feedback, which we also now could consider in the version 4. So please have a look. If something is missing, maybe we can just implement it still until the release of version 4. And if you try it right now, it might have some longer loading time and so on, because many people are maybe testing it right now. Maybe you test it in 15 minutes, an hour, or maybe tomorrow morning. Then the server will handle the load if not everyone is at the same time clicking in the software. So what are the next steps? What we are doing from the development team, we are finalizing the latest functions that we are implementing. We are reactivating the user management so that the projects can be actually saved. And then we are actually right now testing a lot the new functionalities, that everything is working fine. When it's officially released, and when will that be? This will be around November, December this year. I hope actually that we have it online in November. That's the plan that we have, but I cannot completely promise it. So latest will be December. And of course, for all the ones who have a commercial license for nPro, they can of course directly update and then use version 4.0 if they want to. Please also, if you like, subscribe to our newsletter. That's could be important because we are distributing some more information when the release is really done with some helpful information. You can just sign up on our newsletter for our newsletter. And one very important question that always comes at this point, the question, can I take my projects can I take my projects to version 4.0? And yes, that's possible. We will do it as follows. We will copy your projects from version 3 to version 4. And then for some time, for a few months, there will be both versions available, probably until mid of 2026. And then you can decide on your own if you want to go on and use version 3.0 because it's very well tested and it's very stable and so on. And maybe you don't want to change the results. Then you can, because you already communicated them to someone, then you can go on and use version 3 if you want to. But if you would like to use your projects and transfer them to version 4, then you will find them directly in version 4 already when you log in. And then you can also use version 4. Of course, I'm suggesting to use version 4, but if you, for some reason, would like to go on with version 3, you can do this for around a couple of months at least. All right, and then I have one final slide, more or less, about the Outlook 2026. So there are more features coming in 2026, of course. For example, for the Energy Hub module, many people are using it. We will have a couple of new updates there planned for 2026. But also on the other parts like the network and the buildings and so on, there will be a few updates. For example, regarding the pressure calculation, we will enhance this one. And also regarding interfaces, so the import of data will be enhanced. For example, we will try to enable the import of DWG files that you can have more options how you can import your data into the software. Last word actually about the ones who are not using nPro right now. Feel free to book a demo call if you would like to know more, if you have your own project and you would like to see how you can use nPro to how nPro can help you to work on your projects. Feel free to book a demo call, and then we will show you how you can use nPro for your specific project. So now I talked a lot. I will come to the question section. We have some more minutes. I will try to answer as many questions as possible. If there are important questions not answered, we will send them afterwards. And now I will try to open my question board here because we monitored a few of your comments. And I will start with one of them. So there was one question regarding domestic hot water. I'm wondering what if the possibility of using a heat pump booster to raise the temperature of domestic hot water has been considered. Not completely sure what is meant, but I would say yes, because we have many different options how you can booster the heat pump or the temperature for domestic hot water. You can have a low temperature network and you can then booster it to the domestic hot water demand. You have also the possibility to say that you would like to have a booster heat pump in the first step, and then in the second step you would like to have a like a flow through heater to have the second temperature difference directly with electricity. So there are many different options how you can model the boostering of domestic hot water in the buildings decentrally. If there's something not available, then just write us an email. There's another question. What about the ATES? How to model this much easier? Yes, so aquifer thermal energy storage, that's actually a very good question. And that's something that we will tackle probably in 2026 when we revise a bit the energy hub calculation and module. There are possibilities to model this, but in some cases, I think it's satisfying, but in some cases, it's not super satisfying. You can use the geothermal module for an aquifer thermal energy storage in some cases, and you can also model regeneration for it. But I saw many problems where we could solve it with the available model, but I think there are also possibilities or some configurations where you cannot directly model this in some configurations, and we will have a look at this in 2026 for sure. We have quite a few ideas collected over time how we can enhance the model to model aquifer thermal energy storages more easily. For example, in the Netherlands, that's a very common technology. As an energy use, I would like to use water bodies as a heat source, aquathermal. Yeah, very good question. So if maybe can I close this presentation here? Go to the energy hub. So if you have something that you cannot find here directly in this technology board, for example, he says an aqua body, so whatever, like a river or maybe the sea or a lake, then I would always suggest to have a look at this heat source here, because you can model this in very detail. You can, for example, enter the available heating power. So how much power can you extract from the river, from the sea? This can be one value, but you can also upload a time series if you know how much you can extract, and you can also model the temperature. And this can be one value, but you can also here have a profile. So if you have a river, for example, you can say that you have a booster heat pump to feed the heat into the network, and then you can have different temperatures in winter and in summer to accurately model the COP for your heat pump. So in all these cases, I would suggest to have a look at the heat and cold source here that you can use. So more questions are coming in. That's good. What will be the maximum amount of connections in version 4.0? So probably how large can the district be regarding the number of buildings? Actually, that's a good question. We improved the backend and the calculation quite a lot to make it more efficient and faster, and that we can model larger districts, but we did not run the load test yet. So we will do this, and I hope actually that we have more buildings that we can model. As you know, right now there's a limit at around 500, 600, 700 buildings that you can model in one district. But we are working hard to push this further, that we have maybe 1,000, maybe 1,500 buildings in the district. That would be helpful. We know this, and probably with version 4 it will be a bit larger, but I cannot completely promise it right now. Yeah, alternative units, measurements, currency, that's maybe important for the international community here. So you can change the unit system a little bit. So you can change, of course, the currency. And actually for the new version, we also added a few more options here, that you have the correct currency in the software. And the unit system is available in some parts of the software. So for example, for importing data and for exporting data. It's possible to choose, for example, for the report, you can choose imperial system or metric system and so on. The input fields are normally always in the metric system, so we cannot change the units here and the normal parameters that we have, but in the import and export, we are working on it or actually it's already realized that you have your own unit system there and that you can flexibly use it for importing and exporting data. All right. Could I preheat the domestic hot water to the temperature level of the heating system and then heat it up to the domestic hot water set temperature? Yes, let's have a look. So what you can do is, as I said, there are few options that you can use. So for example, if you have a very low temperature in the network, let's say 30 degrees, then you can use in the first step, use the domestic hot water. You can use in the first step the booster heat pump and raise the temperature to a certain level. And then you can have an additional heater. So if you say here a partially electric reheating, then you can say that this booster heat pump in the first step raises the temperature to a certain level, to a preheat temperature. So for example, 40 degrees Celsius. And if your heating system is maybe underfloor heating with 35 or something, then you could say, okay, let's first raise it to 40 degrees Celsius. We can then use it for space heating as well. And then the rest would be the rest gaps. So from 40 degrees Celsius to, in this case, 60 degrees Celsius can be then done with electric flow heater. So this is possible right now, and then you get the sizing for both, and then you have also the energy balances. So what else do we have? The ability to use booster pumps, distributed pumps, and the effect of these on the network pressure would also be very useful. Yes, good question. Maybe I just take it. So there are different options, as you know. For example, if you have decentral pump system for 5th generation district heating and cooling networks, you can change this here in the hydraulic settings. So there are few options available, not everything, but here, for example, you can select also decentral pumps in case that you have a passive 5 GDHC 5th generation district heating and cooling network. Okay, there are more questions coming up, but let's have a look if we have. Yeah, there's one maybe general question will version 4 also be available for users with an academic license? Yes. Probably it will be that we first launch it for the commercial users, and then in end of December maybe, or maybe beginning of January, we will then also make it available for the academic users. Yes. So if you are a student or something, you can also use it than with an academic license. All right. Are the same improvements available for single building projects? Yeah, that's a good question. Not directly. So we really focus a little bit on the district part. So especially the domestic hot water part is not with the new power parameters is not completely available in the single building projects. But I expect a lot of feedback maybe in this area, and probably we can also do the same functionality then in the single building projects and make it available there as well. Because I think that would be also a very, very good use case. All right. I think, do we have anything important left? Let's see. There are a few more ideas. That's good. I think that's basically it. All right. Then I would like to thank you very much that you joined today for our webinar. I hope it was not too fast. A lot of information, I know. But I hope you got the idea what we are doing, and I hope you are looking forward to version 4.0. Always give us feedback. All these developments, I would say 90% of the developments were triggered by the users. So if you have ideas how we can improve nPro in the future even more, then always write us an email or indicate what you would like to improve in the software, and then we can try to realize this. Thank you very much for today, and have a wonderful afternoon.